Alright guys, such coming here and say, hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. TJHaLy successfully made it to his first World Championship in quite some time, but he's been under fire seriously by many of the pro players over the last few days. Scrappy and Dashy were giving their perspective on TJ's situation a few days ago. Now there's some further reaction from Drazah, from Dashy, and from others to a pretty funny clip that went down last night. But also, lots of the OpTic guys talking about their least favoured emergency contact in that hypothetical situation, and they reckon that Brandon Dashy is maybe one to keep an eye out for. Lots to get into today. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. This was just Kremp here from the Rafa Racing Garage explaining what's happened this past weekend in Mid-Ohio. He's got another race coming up relatively shortly. Hitch put together the best Call of Duty players on 100T. Of course, he did. I do find these pretty funny when he puts his face just deadpan on the right-hand side. He's done this now for a couple of different teams. Did it for OpTic, did it for FaZe. This is what he came up with for 100 Thieves. Nate he had down here at number 10. Obviously, the main roster for the Los Angeles Thieves, then Octane, then Blast, Sender, then obviously Enable finds himself down here at 11. He wasn't very happy about that. Courage in 16th. So I thought this is a pretty good list, all things considered, really. Pretty funny stuff. And Hitch, you know, is he right? Muddle gets 13.5, somewhere in between. So yeah, I don't know. I thought the content was pretty good. Speaking of Thieves, though, there was this interesting post yesterday between Envoy and Simp. Envoy, Simp, Envoy and the Tiny Terrors, whatever you want to say. From an all-time Call of Duty ranking perspective, where would you consider Envoy to be? You know, maybe in the kind of around 20th best player, that kind of ballpark. I don't know what you think about it. It's kind of difficult to rank Envoy because, you know, as a player, clearly talented and, you know, I would say very talented, honestly, if you look at the total of his career, but he's not a player from a pure, like, raw skill perspective. And obviously he's also had his down years and his down moments as well individually that could be compared to Simp and aBeZy. So, you know, Simp, people have him, you know, maybe near enough 5th best all time in that kind of ballpark. Now, aBeZy, as a result, can't be all that far behind. So that's a bit of a different conversation because when it comes to greatest ever, you know, the pure skill and talent and like MVP level stuff, that is very relevant. But if you look at Envoy's record specifically against the Terrors, it's actually really good. So overall, since Envoy came into the league, which was Black Ops 4, right? So he came in on Midnight Esports, then he was on Gen G. The Terrors lead that head-to-head 20-18. Before this year, it was 16-16, but this year FaZe had their number a bit, and of course that's turned around over the last couple of tournaments. But on LAN, the record for Envoy is actually far better. So, you know, this is Envoy's whole... We're just talking Thieves here, because obviously Scrappy's not been around that long, Ghosty's not been around that long, and of course HyDra's been around since 2021. Envoy's been playing since 2015, but 2019, of course, in the league. And you know, as you can see, 13-8 on LAN, contested 6 grand finals, both having won 3. They faced him in the 2022 World Championship match, of course, that went to Envoy. And in recent times, it is pretty interesting that Envoy's record against the Terrors is just very good in general. In Champs head-to-head, it's 3-2 and 3-0 on LAN. Even looking back to BO4, as I say, when it was on Gen G, Envoy generally had a very good time against FaZe that season, or E-United as it was back then that season too. So just an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Speaking of those players, Simp does also make this list, which is what, well, G's-Band describes as the longevity merchants. Players that have the biggest gap between their first and most recent victory. The winner here is actually Scump. He won back in Black Ops 1, MLG Dallas, and then he won his most recent event in 2022, CDL Major 1. Krim is not far off. Slasher is not that far off either, with nearly 3,000 days. If he was to win again, of course, he would leapfrog a couple, or certainly leapfrog Krim6 anyway. John, Aches, Octane, Clayster, of course, had that famous like 1,400-day streak of not winning and then got back on form at the end of 2019 and then won the championship the following year as well. Cap, Kenny, attached Zuma form, but, you know, there's not many players here that are still around, really. It's only Simp and aBeZy and Dashy who winning Las Vegas in 2019. Technically, that was 2018, but it was the 19 season. And then COD Champs in 2024. Pretty significant gap, but understandably, many of these guys have now stepped away. Attached stepped away recently, but Kenny's still here. Won his first event, CWL Dallas 2018. And, you know, potentially more victories to come in his future. Maybe that's more likely than Slasher, depending on where Kenny goes in the future and whether he can get back on a really top team in the league. Of course, frustrations around the state of COD. Does that mean that Slasher, Kenny, these other players are going to quit, call it a day? Not necessarily as far as I'm concerned, but a few interesting clips to go through today and some of the implications for it, because TJHaLy was getting cooked the other day. what was it? Scrappy and Dashy were talking about, oh, you know, you finally made a world championship again. TJ was saying, like, I can't wait to play you in the first round of the world championship, or like play you in the winners finals or whatever. As we know, based on looking at the bracket earlier on today, Ravens, so TJ's team, they played Toronto in the first round of the bracket. If they win that series, they play the winner of OpTic or FaZe. If they win that series, they play either Thieves, potentially, or Miami, or Surge, or Boston. But likely it's going to be Thieves, probably anyway, in that particular winners finals match. So, you know, TJ was looking at the bracket and saying, okay, all I've got to do is beat Toronto, beat FaZe or OpTic, and then I get to play Scrappy in the next rounds and, you know, try and win the whole tournament and finally claim the world championship ring. Are Ravens going to do that? You know, the likelihood is slim to none, but this old video was resurfacing here of TJ absolutely stacking it, and the boys thought this was kind of funny. It's a funny video, right? This is from the Boston days, I imagine, because in the background you can see Zinni here, and then the next shot, I think you can see Zed in the background. Yeah, that looks like Zed to me, so it's got to be. So anyway, this is a little bit old at this point, but obviously Zinni thought it was pretty funny. And there was some replies to it as well. So as TJ says, wow, at TJ, or Drazah says, wow, at TJ. Dashy goes, no way, that's my 2v2 duo. Do you want to get some chals in though? So I think finally, we're starting to see some of the players grind again just a little bit. Dashy's trying to get some chals in. TJ's trying to get some chals in, Drazah's trying to get some chals in. So, you know, the guys are ramping up towards the World Championship. Maybe now is finally when we're starting to see the final push for some of these players. And as Drazah then says in the replies, Kremp is back tomorrow. So it's interesting what's happened with Kremp and with the teams that didn't make it to the World Championship, right? Especially someone like Cloud9. I'm not 100% sure what happened there, but it does feel like after Major 4, some of those guys, and maybe understandably, just decided to take a bit of a break. Kremp, the other guys probably went back home or went on holiday or something. Arsties was tweeting out that he was in, not Cancun, but he went, I think he was in the Bahamas, was he? I don't know. Arsties tweeted that out anyway, not sure he actually went there, but you know what I'm saying. The players that didn't make champs, they called it a day for a little bit, and then they're going to be back, ready to grind and potentially help some of the other teams prepare for champs, and then help their own team prepare for the World Cup shortly after that as well. So Kremp back in business, Dashy, obviously Draz, TJ, trying to get something rolling. But a couple of funny clips to share on this matter as well. We had Scrappy back at it again. I'm not sure when they recorded these, really. Maybe it was in Madrid at the start of the season, because often they like to do this work. I think it maybe was because Huke appears in these. And Huke was there at the first major in Madrid. And then after that, of course, things changed quite dramatically with OpTic. It's been a bit of a controversial season, to say the least. There was some funny moments in here with Scrap talking about why he might want a certain Daniel Ghosty as his roommate. I can't possibly think of the reason why with those two guys in a room. But, you know, they were sitting down having a good time. And there was also a pretty funny clip that came out of OpTic where they were talking about the worst possible emergency contact. And this does kind of hark back a little bit to some of the previous days. You guys remember when we always used to talk, it was a common story, wasn't it, about Dashy and getting up on time and making sure that he's there and locked in for scrims and all this. And the general feeling is, and I think that this still seems to be very true, that that has improved a lot over the last few years. You know, there were so many stories of Dashy, you know, turning up late or whatever the stuff was back in the day. And it used to be a common talking point in the community. Less so nowadays. But I thought this clip was pretty funny when the guys are like, yeah, well, Dashy would be awake, so obviously that's not going to work out all the time. Not to say that Dashy isn't necessarily there on time for scrims, it's more so that, you know, let's say there was an emergency happened at 10 in the morning. Okay, probably you're going to have to wait until Dashy wakes up for scrims to get that response.
Are you okay? Yo! Oh no! You fucking idiot, man.
If I could have a CDL teammate as a roommate, honestly, I'd pick none of them.
I had TJ as a roommate for 2.5 years, and let's just say I was 30 pounds heavier, so I'm actually down to run it back. Probably TJ.
But if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with Dan Ghosty. Probably a reason I can't say, but...
What do you mean by that?
I'd say Purge, because I already room with him. Like, we live in the same apartment, but yeah, it's good vibes.
Give me Kremp. I feel like Kremp he's just really funny, so I think me and him being a roommate would be funny.
Honestly, I might go Teach. I think he might be the best roommate. He might be good vibes, but I might have to just clean him up for that guy.
The worst person to have is an emergency contact in OpTic.
Let's go with Brandon.
Dashy.
Brandon.
Dashy, he's gonna be asleep.
Definitely Hitch. That guy's washed, he's old, he's not answering.
I feel like Pomage for some reason. Maybe Nick too. I don't think he'd answer the phone.
Weirdo?
Bo said I'm the worst emergency contact. First off, it would definitely either be Bo's or I would say Seth.
Scump. For many reasons.
Yo, might be Seth when he's streaming though. Not gonna lie.
I hate to do it, but probably Formal because I feel like he just won't pick up his phone. I'm sorry, Matt.
There was another 20v1 that went down last night as well, so we had CDL kind of organise this with Swooty. I don't know, watch it. I imagine that it was pretty entertaining from both fronts, but I know that there was some talk about getting, TJHaLy involved, getting JoeDeceives involved, and maybe getting some other individuals in the community as well, because you guys remember the Dashy one that feels like kind of a long time ago at this point. People were kind of wondering whether we run that back again as a COD scene with the amount of content lately that's been going around the scene going into the World Championship, which is effectively none, that might not be a bad idea, to be fair. Just to close out with this, I thought was interesting. COD Discussion puts it out there. Best map on every COD. And I don't necessarily agree with all of these, and I don't agree with that many of these, to be fair. But it is interestingly controversial. BO1, I kind of like some of the shouts. Like Havana in BO1 was a great map. Would I say it was the best? No. I would give Raid the tip over Standoff in BO2, but I did love Standoff, to be fair. Warhawk, I think, is a great shout from Ghost. I thought that map was sensational. Detroit wasn't. I would actually go Biolab from Advanced Warfare. Maybe not the best, to be fair, but it was my favourite. But I love Biolab. I thought it was amazing. Black Ops 3, as much as I love BO3, Evac is nowhere near the best map on that game. Evac was so cheese that you guys know that I would pick Stronghold. There's some other good candidates in there as well. Obviously Fringe, among others. Throwback, I think, was kind of a no-brainer for Infinite Warfare, but some might disagree. Docs, Arsenal, Gunrunner. I think the takes in the recent games get a little bit better. Tuscan in Vanguard genuinely is one of the best maps that we've had in the CDL era. Hotel. So I think his picks get a little bit better. Not so sure about the most recent one, but then again, in BO6, you've not got all that much choice. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
Fucking like shit. I'm waking up feeling like fucking shit.
Pretty well in the CT side.
Bro, what am I hearing right now?
Change that maybe because I do think
Tommy, is that you?
Also showing up consistently on that map.
Or is that baby Kai Kai?
Picture a little bit.
You mentioned the city side, that's where MIB are choosing to start.
Nah, I feel that, man. Nah, for sure.
What should they be looking out for in terms of the T side?
Nah, be like that, Kai. I know. Kai, be like that, bro.
Does he want to play super fast Counter-Strike, or does he want to feel that maybe a little bit more? Are you going to go out there and try to...
Dude, it's a big map, too, coming up, though, Kai. It's a big map, too, baby, Kai. I know, Frozen's been going crazy. No, he's been going nuts.
Ancient is one of those weird maps.
Nah, he's been going nuts. I agree, Kai.
I agree. Middle, towards A, towards B. So there's a lot of different options right now. If I'm Kerrigan on the T side, I want to...
Do you have anything else to say?